About 3 years ago, I was working at a factory on the outskirts of Birmingham, the kind of place you only noticed if you lived nearby or needed a job quickly. It sat between a derelict canal and a row of tired-looking warehouses, its brick walls permanently stained by decades of rain and exhaust fumes. The sign outside still carried the name of a company that had gone bankrupt years earlier, but inside, production never stopped. The factory didn't really hire people in the traditional sense. It outsourced human beings the same way it outsourced cleaning supplies, through 5 different temp agencies. You could walk in on a Monday and be gone by Wednesday without anyone asking why. Faces changed daily. Names were forgotten before lunch. If you were lucky, someone might remember your high-vis vest color. It was a revolving door of people trying to survive. 12-hour shifts. 6 days a week. A half-hour lunch break if the line didn't break down. The noise never stopped, metal grinding, forklifts reversing, alarms beeping in the background like a permanent migraine. By the end of the day, your ears rang and your patience wore thin. Lunch was sacred. Most of us brought food from home because the vending machines charged criminal prices for stale crisps and lukewarm pasties. The break room fridge was ancient, humming like it was on life support, but it worked, mostly. People labeled their food, stacked it carefully, and hoped for the best. That hope lasted exactly 1 week. The first time my lunch went missing, I assumed it was a mistake. Same thing everyone tells themselves. Someone grabbed the wrong container. Honest error. I shrugged it off and bought a sandwich from the corner shop across the road. The second time, I felt annoyed. The third time, suspicious. By the fourth, I was angry. By the 6th consecutive 12-hour shift with no lunch, I was done. Someone in that factory was stealing lunches. Not just mine either. A few people complained quietly, but no one ever saw anything. Cameras didn't cover the break room. Supervisors didn't care. Temp workers were replaceable, and so were their problems. Everyone became a suspect. There was Dave from Line B, always broke, always forgetting his wallet. There was the quiet lad who never spoke but always sat alone. There was even a woman who claimed she was gluten-free yet somehow survived on other people's meals. But I never confronted anyone. Not directly. I'm not proud of what I did next, but after 6 days without lunch, pride takes a backseat to principle. I wanted the thief to stop. Not through threats. Not through management. Through consequences. That's when I remembered the Carolina Reaper. I'd bought the peppers months earlier at a food festival in London, more as a novelty than anything else. The stall owner had warned me like I was signing a legal document. World's hottest chili. Handle with care. I used them sparingly at home, mostly to scare friends or add a tiny kick to sauces. That night, I decided they had a higher purpose. I went all out. Steak fajitas. Proper ones. Marinated the beef for hours with lime, garlic, cumin, and smoked paprika. Caramelized onions. Fresh peppers. Warm tortillas wrapped in foil. This wasn't bait, it was art. Then came the pico de gallo. I wore gloves. Goggles, even. Minced the Carolina Reaper peppers until they were nearly paste, mixing them carefully with tomatoes, onions, coriander, and lime juice. It looked innocent enough. Fresh, colorful, inviting. Death disguised as lunch. I tasted a pinhead-sized amount and immediately regretted my life choices. Perfect. I packed everything neatly into a clear Tupperware container. Garnished it properly. Lime wedges on the side. Cilantro sprinkled on top. I wanted it to look irresistible. Something that screamed, steal me. I didn't label it. The next morning, I placed the container in the fridge around 8:15 a.m. The factory hummed as usual. Nothing seemed different. I went back to the line and tried not to think about it. At 9:22 a.m., everything changed. A scream echoed through the building, not the usual frustrated shout or swearing when machinery jammed. This was panic. Raw and uncontrolled. Someone yelled for help. I ran toward the break room along with half a dozen others. Inside, chaos. A woman was on the floor, clutching her chest, gasping like she'd surfaced from deep water too fast. Her face was flushed, eyes wide with terror. Someone had knocked over a chair. Another worker was frantically waving their arms, shouting for someone to call an ambulance. The Tupperware container lay open on the table. Empty. The smell hit me instantly. Chili, lime, regret. The woman's inhaler lay just out of reach. An asthma attack. The Carolina Reaper hadn't just burned, it had triggered something far worse. Paramedics arrived quickly. Someone said later it was luck they were already nearby. They stabilized her, loaded her onto a stretcher, and rushed her out. The break room fell silent, the fridge humming louder than ever. No one looked at me. No one said anything. I went back to work and finished my shift without lunch, again. She never came back. No investigation. No questions. No accusations. Management chalked it up to a medical incident. The lunch thefts stopped completely. Weeks passed. Then months. Eventually, I left the factory, like everyone else eventually did. I never told anyone what I'd done. Until now. Because here's the thing no one talks about. Revenge doesn't always feel good. It doesn't always feel justified. Sometimes it just sits with you, heavy and unresolved. I didn't intend to hurt anyone. I intended to teach a lesson. But lessons don't come with safety warnings. I still think about her sometimes. About the scream. About the empty container. About how close things came to going very, very wrong. I don't know her name. She doesn't know mine. And maybe that's for the best. Because some stories aren't about heroes or villains. They're about hunger, desperation, and the thin line between justice and regret. And that line, it burns. Until now. Because here's the thing no one talks about. Revenge doesn't always feel good. It doesn't always feel justified. Sometimes it just sits with you, heavy and unresolved. I didn't intend to hurt anyone. I intended to teach a lesson. But lessons don't come with safety warnings. I still think about her sometimes. About the scream. About the empty container. About how close things came to going very, very wrong. I don't know her name. She doesn't know mine. And maybe that's for the best. Because some stories aren't about heroes or villains. They're about hunger, desperation, and the thin line between justice and regret. And that line, it burns.